Focus on yourself and stay silent in 2026. Stoicism, Stoic Wisdom. As we enter 2026, the world around us grows increasingly noisy, chaotic, and demanding of our attention. Social media screams for our engagement. News cycles create artificial urgency about events we cannot control. People expect constant availability and immediate responses. The pressure to perform, announce, and broadcast every aspect of our lives has never been greater. Yet the ancient Stoics offer us radically different wisdom for this new year. Focus relentlessly on yourself and embrace strategic silence as a source of power. This isn't selfishness or isolation. It's the recognition that your life, your character, and your development are the only projects truly within your control, and that much of what poses as connection and engagement is actually distraction and depletion. Marcus Aurelius, despite ruling an empire, constantly redirected his focus inward to his own thoughts, choices, and character. Epictetus taught that freedom comes from wanting nothing outside yourself. Seneca wrote that we must jealously guard our time and attention because they're our most precious and non-renewable resources. As this year unfolds, the Stoic approach isn't to engage more but to withdraw strategically, to stop broadcasting and start building, to replace constant talking with deliberate silence. Let's explore why this ancient wisdom is more relevant than ever and how to apply it practically in 2026. The first principle is that focusing on yourself is not selfish, it's necessary. Modern culture has conditioned us to feel guilty about prioritizing our own development, our own peace, our own goals. We're told that constantly thinking of others, being available to everyone, and putting ourselves last is virtuous. But the Stoics understood something crucial. You cannot give what you don't have. You cannot help others effectively if you're depleted. You cannot contribute meaningfully if you haven't developed your own capabilities and character. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." In 2026, make your primary focus this internal retreat, not as escapism but as the foundation for everything else. Your character development, your skill acquisition, your physical health, your mental clarity, your philosophical growth. These are the raw materials from which you build a meaningful life and from which genuine contribution to others flows. This means saying no to demands on your time that don't serve your development. It means disappointing people who expect your constant availability. It means prioritizing your workout over social obligations, your reading over entertainment, your personal projects over others' drama. This feels uncomfortable initially because we've been trained to believe that good people sacrifice themselves endlessly for others. But the Stoics knew that sustainable contribution comes from overflow, not from self-depletion. The practice for 2026, audit where your time and energy currently go. How much goes toward genuine self-development versus toward maintaining appearances, managing others' emotions, or consuming content that doesn't improve you? Ruthlessly eliminate the latter and redirect that energy toward deliberate self-improvement. This is the foundation of the Stoic life, becoming excellent so that your actions flow from excellence rather than from scattered, depleted mediocrity. The second principle is that silence is power in a world of noise. Everyone is talking. Everyone has opinions about everything. Everyone broadcasts their thoughts, their activities, their achievements, their struggles. The Stoics understood that this constant expression actually dilutes power rather than demonstrating it. Seneca wrote about how the wise person speaks rarely, and only when speech serves a clear purpose. Epictetus taught his students to guard their words carefully, recognizing that speech creates vulnerabilities and commitments. In 2026, practice strategic silence as a form of power. This means several things. First, stop announcing your plans and goals. Work on them quietly until they're substantial or complete. The modern habit of announcing intentions on social media or to friends creates premature validation that reduces motivation to actually complete the work. It also invites opinions, doubts, and energy vampires who will discourage you. The Stoic works in silence and lets results speak. Second, stop defending yourself and explaining your choices to everyone. When you make a decision that others question or disagree with, the modern impulse is to justify and explain until everyone understands and approves. But this is giving away power. The Stoic makes decisions based on their own values and judgment, then implements them without seeking approval. Your choices don't require explanation to everyone who asks. "That doesn't work for me," or "I've made my decision," are complete responses. Third, stop engaging in pointless arguments and debates, especially online. The Stoics valued philosophical discussion with fellow seekers of truth, but they had no interest in arguing with people committed to misunderstanding. In 2026, recognize that most arguments aren't about truth-seeking. They're about ego, tribal signaling, and entertainment. Your silence in the face of provocation is far more powerful than any argument you could make. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." In 2026, embody this principle. Stop talking about your values and start living them silently. Stop arguing about what's right and start doing what's right quietly. Your life becomes your statement, and that statement is far more powerful than words. The third principle is that attention is your most valuable currency. Guard it ruthlessly. The Stoics understood that where your attention goes, your life goes. In 2026, we face unprecedented attacks on our attention. Algorithms designed to capture and hold your focus. News cycles engineered to create urgency and anxiety. Social media platforms optimized to trigger comparison and FOMO. All of this is designed to extract your attention and sell it to advertisers. Epictetus taught that the only thing truly ours is our capacity to make choices about where we direct our attention and how we respond to impressions. Everything else is borrowed or transient. When you give your attention away carelessly to news you can't affect, drama you're not involved in, or content designed purely to manipulate your emotions, you're squandering your most precious resource. The practice for 2026. Become fiercely protective of your attention. This means aggressive curation of information inputs. Unfollow, unsubscribe, and eliminate sources that agitate without informing or that entertain without improving you. Limit news consumption to brief, scheduled periods rather than constant monitoring. Delete social media apps or set strict limits on usage. Create spaces of silence where no information is coming at you and you can think your own thoughts. Also practice single tasking with full attention rather than the scattered multitasking that characterizes modern life. When you work, work with full focus. When you read without checking your phone. When you're with people, be actually present rather than mentally elsewhere. The Stoics practiced prosody, mindful attention to the present moment. In 2026, this practice is revolutionary because it's so rare. The fourth principle is that comparison and competition with others is a trap. Focus on becoming better than you were yesterday. Social media has turned life into a constant comparison game. Everyone is curating highlight reels while you're experiencing your behind-the-scenes reality. The result is chronic inadequacy and the feeling that you're falling behind. The Stoics knew this trap well, though in different form. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself not to be impressed by others' possessions, achievements, or status. He focused instead on his own character and whether he was improving. Epictetus taught that comparing yourself to others is pointless because you're comparing your internals, which you know intimately, including all your struggles and failures, to their externals, which you see only superficially. It's an inherently unfair and uninformative comparison. In 2026, make your only competition yourself. Ask each day, am I better than I was yesterday? Am I living according to my values? Am I making progress on what matters to me? These are the only meaningful questions. Whether someone else has more money, better relationships, more followers, greater success, none of that is relevant to your path. They're running their race. You're running yours. This requires deliberately reducing exposure to others' curated presentations. Limit social media, resist the urge to check what others are doing, focus on your own scoreboard. The Stoics practice this by regularly reminding themselves that external goods, wealth, fame, status, aren't truly valuable. What's valuable is virtue, wisdom, and character, and these can only be measured against your own standards, not others' achievements. The fifth principle is that most relationships and obligations aren't serving you. Audit and eliminate ruthlessly. Seneca wrote that we complain about life being short, but we waste most of it on activities and people that don't matter to us. The Stoics were careful about how they invested their limited time and energy, and they were willing to disappoint or distance themselves from people whose presence was draining rather than enriching. In 2026, conduct a ruthless audit of your relationships and commitments. Who actually adds value to your life versus who creates drama, demands, and depletion? What obligations are you maintaining out of genuine value versus out of guilt, fear, or social pressure? The Stoic maintains relationships and commitments that align with their values and serve mutual growth. Everything else is up for elimination or reduction. This doesn't mean becoming cold or abandoning people in need. It means recognizing that you have limited energy and that investing it in people and activities that drain you leaves nothing for what actually matters. The friend who only calls when they need something, the family obligation that brings only stress, the social commitment you maintain only because you're afraid of seeming rude. The Stoic has the courage to eliminate these. The practice. List your regular relationships and commitments. For each, ask honestly, does this relationship commitment align with my values? Does it contribute to my growth or to genuine mutual benefit? Or am I maintaining it from guilt, fear, or inertia? Be honest, then make decisions. Reduce contact with people who drain you. Decline commitments that don't serve meaningful purposes. Create more space for solitude and for the few relationships that genuinely enrich your life. The sixth principle is that personal excellence requires sustained, focused effort. Eliminate distraction and shallow work. The Stoics believed that the cultivation of virtue and wisdom was the primary human project. This requires deep, sustained attention that shallow, distracted living makes impossible. Marcus Aurelius carved out time daily for philosophical study and reflection despite running an empire. Epictetus created a school environment designed for focused learning. Seneca protected his mornings for writing and thinking. In 2026, the forces pulling you toward shallow, distracted living are stronger than ever. Constant notifications, infinite scroll, quick hits of dopamine from likes and comments. The path of least resistance is fragmented attention that never goes deep into anything. But excellence in any domain, physical fitness, skill development, creative work, relationship depth, requires sustained focus over time. The practice. Structure your day to protect time for deep work. This might mean mornings without phone or internet, dedicated hours for focused practice or creation, environments free from distraction. The Stoics were disciplined about their practices, and in 2026, this discipline is more necessary than ever. You cannot become excellent at anything while constantly interrupted and distracted. Also recognize that much of what passes for productivity is actually busy work. Responding to every message immediately, attending every meeting, staying constantly available. These create the appearance of productivity while preventing actual deep work. The Stoic focuses on what genuinely moves their important projects forward and ruthlessly eliminates or delegates everything else. The seventh principle is that 2026 is the year to stop performing and start becoming. Social media has turned life into performance art. We curate, we filter, we present, we manage perceptions. But the Stoics would see this as the opposite of virtue. True excellence doesn't need to be performed or announced. It simply is. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations in private, never intending them for publication. He developed his character in silence, for himself, not for audience approval. In 2026, practice becoming rather than performing. This means working on yourself when no one is watching, developing skills no one will see immediately, building character that isn't Instagram-worthy, making yourself excellent not for the applause but because excellence is its own reward, and because living according to virtue is the Stoic definition of the good life. Stop posting everything. Stop seeking validation through likes and comments. Stop measuring your progress by others' reactions. The work you do in silence, the person you become when no one is watching, the character you develop through private discipline, this is what matters. The Stoic knows that the only audience that matters is your own conscience and your own honest self-assessment. As we move through 2026, the world will continue demanding your attention, your reaction, your engagement, your performance. The Stoic response is to refuse these demands politely but firmly. You focus on yourself, not from selfishness but from wisdom. You embrace silence, not from weakness but from power. You guard your attention, not from fear but from understanding its value. You work in private, not from shame but from discipline. The Stoics proved that this approach works. Marcus Aurelius became one of history's greatest leaders and philosophers not through constant self-promotion, but through relentless self-development. Epictetus achieved freedom while enslaved by mastering his inner world. Seneca produced works that influenced millions not by chasing fame but by pursuing wisdom. In 2026, you can follow their path. Focus relentlessly on your own development. Speak less and work more. Guard your attention like the precious resource it is. Measure yourself against yourself. Eliminate what doesn't serve you. Do deep work in silence. Become excellent privately before you display publicly. This is the Stoic path for the new year. Not loud, not performative, not constantly broadcasting. Quiet, focused, internally directed, and ultimately far more powerful than the scattered, approval-seeking, externally oriented life that modern culture promotes. The question is whether you have the discipline and courage to walk this path when everyone around you is running in the opposite direction. Let 2026 be the year you rediscover the power of focusing on yourself and the strength of strategic silence. Let it be the year you stop explaining and start embodying. Let it be the year you reclaim your attention and redirect it toward what actually matters. This is the Stoic way, and it's as relevant and powerful today as it was 2,000 years ago.